The rapid expansion of Philadelphia has seen big growth in the city's economy, with the Treasury now sitting on a cool $20 million. This has been particularly fueled by the construction of Tinney Mine, bringing in new industrial wealth and manufacturing to the region. However, citizens seeking university-level education have so far been forced to travel out to neighbouring Funella County to fulfil this need, leaving Philadelphia in the dark in terms of growth within the tech and financial services sectors. The mayor has decided to address this by approving plans for the development of a new technology institute and university housing village to keep those educated workers within the region and fuel future growth in the tech and services sectors. Let's dive in. So the first thing we're going to do today is upgrade this highway because, as you can see, these road maintenance trucks just keep causing massive backlogs and it's starting to annoy me. So we really need a higher capacity highway. So I'm just thinking the simple 4-lane, 2-way highway, nothing more than that, just so we can have essentially an extra lane in here. So I'm just going to start upgrading it from this point and we can smarten up that junction a little bit later on. And we're going to go all the way back towards the Few Haven intersection, because we do already have a 4-lane road there as well. So I feel like that makes sense. And that's just hopefully going to help keep things flowing a little bit better. And I feel like that would be an appropriate development for a city like as this size. Now that Tinney's growing, more development's going to be happening here today. I think having an extra lane on their highway would be an investment that the city would make. Okay, so down here, the trouble is we don't have very much room in between our buildings here to keep upgrading this highway, but we definitely want to do something here because this looks really rather dodgy. So let's go to our asymmetric road to start off with. I think it may just have to bend a tiny bit there, and that's okay. And if we come in and delete out this slip road of highway here, we can reposition this so that it's much smoother. Like so. And then we just want to fix this little section of surface in the middle here. Okay, it's not too shabby, it's a little bit funky, but it's not too bad. And then we do want to ban them from turning right at that point there. Yes, they can only go on that way. And I think that's okay because we can go down to the 2-lane road as they flow through the centre section here. Maybe later we might have to look at upgrading it, but it would mean reducing some of our nice green belt on this side. And yeah, I did actually upgrade it down here, as you can see. So we've got this 4-lane highway that's going to flow off towards where the main downtown's going to be. And a little bit of extra lane mathematics at this point here too. So I think that'll be better. It's going to stop those massive tailbacks on this road back to Few Haven at least anyway. Okay, so let's place in our university, and of course we haven't actually unlocked them yet, so we're going to have to go in and spend some development points to unlock the university, like that. So we also have the technical and the medical university. Now the one that I'm going to put in here, I actually want it to be a kind of technical university. Let's just unlock it because we've got enough points, why not? But the one that I would probably want is just a bit too big, I think, for what we want here. It also has a capacity of 9,800. This one has 8,500. This is the one I think we're going to be using here. So from the Modern Architecture Content Creator Pack, just a significantly smaller footprint than the other universities. Like if we go for the base game, Technical University is just huge. I think it's just overkill for this area and also for what we require in the city at the moment. So if we take a little look at education, oh look at that, we're in the green for elementary and for high school, wonderful, and of course college as well. But for university we've only got less than 2,000 people that are currently eligible, so we really don't need to be putting in a great massive university building. And that's why I think for something like this, which is a sort of suburban specialist technical university, is what I'm thinking here, to encourage those officers to come in. I know it isn't technically that, but this is what we're going for aesthetically at least. I think this is a good spot for it, and I think this is a good size building for it. So it's almost going to look more like a specialist small college, and that's definitely the type of vibe that I want here. So in terms of positioning, I am eyeing up this small kind of plateau on the top of the hill here. The reason being that I think that this would look really nice and be a bit of a feature over the town of Tinney. We've obviously got the water tower there sticking up, but as well when we come to things like the rail, they're going to see it up there on the hill, but also on this highway as well. They're going to see this big building right up there on the hillside. So I think it becomes a feature and a big part of the culture of Tinney and what Tinney's really here and located on the map to be. So that's why I want to go for it here. We do need to do a little bit of landscaping here, of course. So let's go ahead and just smooth ourselves off a bit of a larger plateau at the top here. So we're going to extend out this way just a tiny bit, and we're going to keep features like that into the hillside. I want those to stay there. I don't want to just be completely ruining the natural landscape of the map here. So let's go something like this. And this road is going to, of course, wrap around the front and provide access to it. And we'll also have another access route directly off the highway, I think, too. Let's place this in front and centre here, facing out towards our highway, as we've mentioned, so you can kind of see that from down here. I think that terrain undulation, the fact it's all raised up, is going to create a really, really nice little feature. So let's then grab our 2-lane road here. Now, I think this is actually the suburban street, the unmarked one. It is. So let's just wrap this around the front here, and it's going to come out lower than the university. That's not a problem. And then I definitely think we want another form of intersection coming off here. So let's bring a road out like that. And then in terms of access to the university, I'm actually thinking it's going to come down the side this way. So let's bring this out straight for a little bit longer. And then we'll grab our road out the front here. And we'll go back to a normal road here, because I'm definitely thinking grass verges or something like that would be nice in front of the university. So let's put that in there. And then we'll draw it down to the road like that. This road, I think we'll trim this back a little bit, and we can have that meet up at this point here. So that's kind of connected in, gives us another exit off the highway. We might do a similar thing with the slip road, I think, there as well. But let's see as the build progresses. Now this has all gone awful and bumpy, lumpy, all kinds of disastrous stuff. So let's get rid of that. I do want to use the small pedestrian street to wrap around the complex here. I definitely don't want cars driving around and that sort of thing. So we want straight lines on. Let's wrap this building in it first off, because we're going to want access all the way around. But we're also going to need car access as well. So we may upgrade portions of this to an actual road type so that we can get in that car access as well. So then this side, actually, instead of the pedestrian alley road, we're going to bring down a main road like this so that cars can actually flow on round here. And maybe we actually upgrade it to an alleyway road that's just smaller and nicer as we come up around the edge there. And then this road, as mentioned, can definitely have a nice grass border there. I don't mind a bit of parking maybe on one side. I think that's okay. But let's get rid of all that parking here. Let's turn into a retaining wall. Well, we'll leave it for a moment. Okay, so then behind it, what I definitely want is a big university quad, as they call it in the US. And instead of designing my own, I am actually going to use a park for this, because I want people to actually use it. And if we design our own area, even with the area tools, like, it still doesn't really encourage that many people in. So this has an attractiveness of 15, so it's relatively attractive in terms of park areas, although these are much more so, but totally inappropriate for what we want here. So we're going to be using just our regular large plaza out the back here like this, because this offers like nice open green spaces. It has the fountain. We could even put in a stage potentially with some bench props and that sort of thing to represent some ongoing live activities in the quad. I think that could be kind of fun. I want to get rid of this fence though, because I feel like that's too much. I think a university quad would be quite open to the rest of the area. And we're also going to get rid of, I think, the manicured grass here, or make it blend in a little bit better, maybe with some of Gaga XM's translucent surfaces. I think would be a bit better here. It looks a little bit off-putting, I think, for the main central area like that, but we will come back to that. Because then what we can do as well here is just wrap this building in our one-way pedestrian road so that people can access all the way around. Wait, what's that? Oh, that's a one-way alley. Well, let's actually get our pedestrian road there. We could use the one-way alley, to be fair, actually. So if we take a look at what upgrades this university has, it has some pretty cool ones. So we've got the university library, which I think would be amazing at the back of the quad here somewhere. We also have things like an academy building, which could be good off the side. We've got an extension wing here too. However, the capacity of this is already 8,500, as we can see there. This offers 2,000, another 8,500 for the library, and also upkeep of 70 grand a month. Another 2,000 for the extension wing. We just don't need that capacity right now. So instead of that, what I am going to use is the vanilla ploppable buildings in here. And if we come down to modern architecture, we can find the modern university library extension here. And what we'll do for now is we're just going to place it in at the back here to hold and basically earmark the space where the library will go. when we do eventually want to put it in and make it functional and extend our university when we need that capacity, if we ever need that capacity indeed. So let's just drop it in here. I am going to shift it over a little bit because actually I want to make sure that this is right in the centre of that big quad park area. I think that'll look pretty cool like that. And that is a wonderful building. We also have access around the back, so we want to pay attention to that when we're coming in and putting surfaces, maybe some invisible pathing networks, that sort of thing, to get that in nicely. Wonder if we lift that up a little bit. Yeah, we can see those ramps and the steps at the front, which is a bit more grand. We've got steps up the side here as well. But yeah, glorious, glorious asset that. Absolutely love it. And then we can also add in some more extensions via some of these vanilla ploppables as well. So we could even add in the medical university research facilities, which I feel like looks pretty technical, kind of like the vibe that we'd probably want to go for in this area. So this could even sit off the back here. I'm just thinking to myself though, because the back of it is sort of slightly odd. Yeah, it's very grand, isn't it? Maybe it's a little bit too big, that one. In fact, actually, this is slightly more in keeping with the theme of the building that we've got here. And this is the Modern Technical University Academy building extension. So I think let's put this in. Let's delete out our medical one. And all of this is free when we're just placing these because they're very simply just prop buildings. So they're not really actually doing anything, but aesthetically, they're going to look nice for us as we build out our university and make it look a little bit more realistic here. Let's move that back up into that kind of position here. And then I think there's a couple of other leisure buildings we could introduce into here to make it also functional. So we have things like, actually it's a signature building, this one. So we've got the Skylines Heritage Museum here, which I think would look really nice. And it's also appropriate as well because it adds a 2% interest in university education citywide. It's also attractive, so for tourists and that kind of thing, which we do want to get onto because we've done very, very little with tourism at the moment. So we're going to want to do more in that space. So I think this would be a good thing to have in here. So I think maybe we'll have parking up this side and not kind of clutter that one too much. And maybe we'll have this over here. But what we can do is make this a little bit more interesting in the landscape. Let's make this a little bit smaller here. And we'll have a bit of a kind of dip down from the main university quad, I think. So we can put it on its own kind of little plateau out this side. Yeah, I think that's going to look pretty cool there. We can shape the landscape around it, bring a road down to it as well. So let's go ahead and do that. And I think we will grab an alleyway road for this. So we can bring it out the front here and then let's just move it to tidy that up and make sure that is placed centrally to our road there, which is going to look a little bit better. Lots of terrain tidying up to do, that's not a problem. And then if we come back into vanilla poppables, I think we'll add in a couple more academy buildings into here. So let's do this in a couple of places. We'll also put this at a bit of an angle so it's slightly more interesting, I think, here. And then we can do something out the front there around the side of the library, which I think will be quite nice. And then the campus is starting to take shape. There is another leisure building, though, that I do want to add. Now, I'm not going to be adding in big sports parks into this university. I'm going to say that this is a technical university. Sports isn't the focus. I'm sure in America they probably still have sports teams, even if it's a technical university. But in the UK, that isn't always the case. So we're not going to go for that vibe here. But what I would like to add is this sports hub pavilion, which is quite a large building. But I think this is kind of a good thing to have on a university campus. Like, we need some kind of entertainment and recreation for the students. And this is a place where you can enjoy live sports broadcasts on the giant screen, explore a variety of food stands, offering culinary delight. So I feel like it could act as a bit of a sort of student union centre. And it could also be the transition between the back of the university going onto the university dorms, which I think will be situated around the back here. So I think that this is a nice transition for that. And again, I'm just going to put it on a slightly lower level of terrain over here. And we're going to have to do a lot of sorting out, yes, which we will come to. So yeah, let's place that in here. And then we can also have a proper road that comes up the back here for some more parking. So there's a lot of parking to add in. But I think given this is a suburban university, we want to have a lot of green space and a lot of space between our buildings. Some nature areas. We could even have a park, I'm thinking, up across this hillside, which leans back into the town down this side. I think might be quite nice to have. There's a bit of a nature walk around the university. So I think having these different kind of terrain dynamics to it as well will make it feel a lot more natural. But it does need a lot of tidying up right now. But just before we continue, a quick word from today's video sponsor, which is Instant Gaming. If you would like to pick up the Modern Architecture or the Leisure Venues Content Creator Pack, or indeed any other Cities Skylines 1 or 2 DLC, or a whole host of other games including Farming Simulator, Civilization 7, the whole Sims shebang, Planet Zoo and all of its corresponding DLCs, please do check out my link to Instant Gaming in the description below, which will give you a whole load of discounts off amazing games. So go ahead and bag yourself a deal and also help to support the channel. Right, so before we move on to university housing, let's just do a little quick tidy up of this area, add in our road networks, parking, and sort out some of this nasty terrain. Ah yes, we have students already practicing their yoga on the lawns of the quad. Brilliant stuff, brilliant stuff. So yeah, there we go. We just tidied it up just a tiny bit. One thing I really love actually that I've kind of recently discovered is this concrete edging to car parks. So when we're using domes car parks to create our own custom car parks, adding a tiny concrete border really adds to it. You can see that on the actual assets like here. I think it helps. I think it helps a lot. So like particularly here, I just think it smartens it up and makes it feel a little bit more realistic. Maybe it's a tad wide in this case, but it could act as a pavement or something like that around the actual car park area. I think here as well, I've noticed a lot of people walking along this road. Now I am going to come in and add buses in just a second, but for the moment, I definitely think we could grab an invisible pedestrian path at this point and add something in here. So I'm actually going to wind it up and use this little bit of concrete siding here on the edge of the car park to bring them up into the university campus at this point. And then we can go ahead and use our concrete surface. We can see the markers, there we go, to actually show the path. So it's not just a vanilla default pathway texture, it actually matches the concrete that we have at the car park at the top there. So that looks a little bit jaggedy at the moment, but we'll tidy it up with a few bushes and trees and things like that, and hopefully people will actually use that. I think another place we could definitely use invisible pathways is here. So at the end of this road, we could connect it into the pedestrian road here. So something like that, and then again, we can just use a tiny bit of concrete surface here to extend that out. Like that, so that it meets up and shows that pathway through there. It's very tiny, but you get what I mean. We could do something similar as well this end, just to get people walking around, but there does seem to be quite a few people. We've got homeless moved into the quad as well, which is great, brilliant. But yeah, there's people walking around. There's a few cars in the car park already. Well, only one over that side now, but a few over here. So we're getting some activity in the area. But yeah, let's talk about buses. We definitely want buses over here. Now, our other bus depot in Few Haven is at capacity, so we're going to need to add in a new one at this point. So I'm going to add it here, and we're kind of layering down at this point a little bit. So hopefully if I plot this in, it is going to just transform the terrain in a way that's appropriate. I mean, yeah, it's not so bad. And then we can just flatten out the front here for road access, have a little bit of a bank up to the muscle car garage. Now this road as well, I definitely think we're going to need something else that crosses the train line at this point. So before we forget to do anything with that, let's actually bring out, and I think we can just have a level crossing. I'm not opposed to that here. So we'll just bring that out this way. I think that'll be fine. It's only a local internal road, so shouldn't be too much trouble there. And then if we bring this down, we can bring it down straight to here and then start to bend it around this way. So actually, let's go diagonally at this point. Then we can bring it hopefully down a slope. Have to bring it a little bit further away from the asset so it doesn't distort the terrain too much. Something along those lines. I mean, that looks absolutely awful right now. All right, let's fix this. That's a bit nicer. Using the complex curve function definitely helps there. Then we can bring out access to our bus depot. Oh, we're not on straight roads, hang on. We can bring out access to our bus depot here. So that is now connected in. It's going to go out through that junction there, which I think is okay. And then let's go ahead and add in some actual bus stops. So I think we'll go for the stop shelter, particularly up around the university here. But we could have one right at the front. And actually, I already got rid of the parking here because I didn't like it by putting in the concrete sidewalk thing. But if we get rid of that, we can just have the whole area as a bus stop, which I think will be nice here. We've got benches ready made in this point. Let's put it to this side in front of the trees. I think that'll be nice there. So yeah, we'll add in the bus stop there, which we definitely want. And we're also going to want to come from the train station because, of course, this is the only university in the whole of Philadelphia right now. So we absolutely want to make sure that people have easy access to and from the rest of the region to this university. So let's add in a bus stop outside the front here. So we're going to come from the station out towards the university up here. Now this is going to come in and kind of have to turn around a bit awkwardly, but that's okay. I really want to stop right up by the front. And then we can also have another one at this end of the university, which is going to be close to the university housing, which we're going to put in just a second. So we'll put one on either side like that. And we can also talk about other bus routes into and out of Tinney. So I don't think we need anything else around this commercial district. I think that's all okay here. But we could definitely add some here, for example, and then head on through Tinney this way. Now, of course, we have the schools up here, so we definitely want to be going in that direction, I would say. But we could come out around the circle onto this main road, add in another stop at this point here. It's going to serve them fairly well. And then we could come back down this way and next to the high school. So let's have a stop here. Then we'll also do one outside the front of the high school. And then we'll come back round, I think, this side. And we'll have one by the elementary here as well. And then we can come back out round here. Head on round to our industrial ore area. So then we could finish up with one. Actually, that's quite a nice small stop over here. Is that blocking the front of a industrial unit though? Okay, it's right by bins, so that's not too bad. Yeah, we can put that one in there and then they can turn around essentially and come back. So that gives us some quite nice spread out bus stops, I think. This one's probably a little bit close to here. So let's actually move those. We'll delete those and we'll put it in this side. I know it's not exactly much further away, but it's a tiny bit further away, so that'll work. So let's go ahead, grab the bus line tool and get this in. So we'll start at the station here. I'm not going to worry about the university one just for the moment. We're going to finish that off a little bit later in the video because I am about to add in that university housing, but I wanted to get the buses flowing around here, at least for now, and help sort of curb some of the desperate need to walk for miles on end around the town of Tinney. And I'm going for buses at the moment. Like I did mention trams in the last episode, but a few of you commented that actually Tinney's quite small and maybe trams isn't appropriate to that. So I do kind of agree with that point. And I definitely think at this point in the life cycle of Tinney, the city wouldn't be developing in something as major as a tram network and having to rip up roads, etc. to get those lines in. So I think buses would be an easier investment for the city right now. So that's what we're going for here. I also think the university probably needs another stop within Tinney. So it could probably join into these stops here. So come from the station via these stops and then out to the university and on around the university village. And that will connect up the town into the university quite nicely so people can stop and change at these stops in the middle here to get out to the university. Is anyone using... Oh yes, look, we have got people using our invisible path down here. That's great. Wonderful. And how many people do we actually have in here? So we have 600 at the moment. So yeah, not a massive amount, but I think once we get these buses running, that'll really help. Okay, so just laid out a quick little rough road guidelines for our university village over here, and there's a couple of things that I want to add in at this point. So firstly, I want to add in some university dormitories, and I'm thinking this China bonus residential medium level 1. Actually, sorry, not level 1, level 5. Oh dear. Okay, well, maybe people won't be able to afford this, but it's a nice looking asset anyway. A 6x6 asset here. There are slightly lower levels, and they're quite nice as well, to be fair. Level 3. Okay, I think we could go for the level 3 ones, and actually, thinking about it, these also complement our library quite nicely with the orange. But I think these assets really suit actually the vibe of the university, like the main sort of buildings. I think they go with them quite nicely if I can get it to stop snapping to the road. That's why I thought the level 5s were quite nice for that, because they're very sort of similar style of building. Level 1s are a bit too much. Yeah, we're going to go for the level 3s because then it'll be slightly more affordable on the old rent for our students. But we're going to add in a few of these blocks in and around the university Students' Union, if we're calling it that. So let's turn off snapping to roads to start off with, because we can then position roads in as and where we need. But I'd definitely like one right by the Student Union that's going to be like the party house, let's face it. But I've kind of created these little steps down here, which is where I want them to be positioned. So we're going to have 3 kind of like that. We'll get the road connections in just a moment, which I think is kind of a nice suitable orientation for them. And then let's bring in some slightly different assets here. So we can have a smaller asset maybe on this side of the road, accompanied by a larger one. And then maybe go back to the smaller 4x4 asset of the same type as well for over this side. And we could probably make that slightly more interesting. Let's put this on an angle like this. And again, we'll figure out the road connections in just a minute, but we'll use Move It to place them in how we want. So I think that gives some nice dormitory accommodation there. And then the rest of it, we're really going to fill with mostly row housing, actually, because I know students, when they get into, at least in the UK, when they get into the 2nd and 3rd years of their studies, they move out of the dorms and into actual housing. So that's what we want to try and accomplish over here. And I think row housing is pretty suitable for that. They can share it with their friends, all that kind of fun stuff. So yeah, let's just bring out a few little road connections here to make sure these are connected in to start off with. And nothing too fancy, nice and simple like that. We'll probably want a bit more parking around here somewhere, so we'll definitely introduce that too. But I'm also going to use this road as kind of the university boundary here. So we're not going to put any buildings on this side of it. We're going to keep this all open and green and do some nice designs in the detailing in just a second. We've got a lot of surface work and things like that to do around a lot of these buildings to smarten them up. And then the rest of these can all be row houses. So I think we're going to use a mixture of pretty much everything here. So definitely European, North American row houses, but also the northeast ones I think will be quite suitable for here. Some of the smaller ones, definitely. And I think some of the smaller ones can go in these internal roads. And we'll have some of the larger ones on this main road here facing right out by the university. That's how I'm going to design it. The US Northeast row house assets are incredible, amazing, gorgeous row houses. So love these. Definitely want to use as much of them as possible. There's some really small ones like these, which I think will be really nice along some of these slightly more jaggedy roads over here. You can line them up with these smaller townhouses. And we do also want to bring in like a shop and that sort of thing in here somewhere. So I'm thinking there's going to be a campus shop somewhere in the Student Union over here. It is commercial after all, so that sort of works from that perspective. But we'll probably want a shop maybe on some of these corners, so we'll have a tiny bit of commercial in these corners as well. And then fill pretty much the rest of it with row housing, maybe some single family homes on the outskirts. But I'm thinking pretty much entirely row housing here. Let's get our population up. Oh dear, having said that, our medium density demand has dropped right away, so that's just wonderful. It's building back up a little bit. We have just popped in quite a few large medium buildings here, so hopefully that'll bounce back up. If not, we could potentially swap those for some higher density assets, but just nothing that's too tall. So I was searching through assets, but our medium demand is bouncing right back up, so I think we're going to be okay. Maybe we'll leave some of this for future development if it starts to really tank. I know we can just pop them in anyway and it's not a problem, but as soon as I start having lots of unoccupied housing, demand for all kinds of residential is going to tank. So I do want to follow these a little bit to make sure that the city is still successful in the bounds of the game. Now, just before we come on to the detailing, a quick note on our community challenges. If you're not involved in these, head on over to Discord, which is linked in the description below, and you could be in with a chance of winning a game of your choice up to the value of 20 Great British pounds every single month. So last month we had a challenge which was in deep water was the theme, so a screenshot containing water of some description was literally as broad as the rules got. And this was the winning shot from El Demetrius. Congratulations to you, absolutely amazing stuff. This month's theme is When It Rains, It Pours, so head on over to the Discord to find out all of the rules and how you can enter and get involved in the challenge voting every single month. Alright, let's go ahead and get this build finished. So here we have the Tinny University and the University Village, and I think it's sitting pretty nicely actually into this little kind of hollow in the mountainside here. And in particular, loving this. We've got the train going past at the moment, there we go. But the view's up to the university. It's kind of a subtle slope, it's not like super obvious, but I think it works pretty well to give it stature and importance in this area. And I've used some of GagaXM's grass surfaces here just to brighten up some of these areas, like they are fairly well maintained, where there aren't a lot of trees around the edge of the university. Except for this section here where it's a bit more rocky, we've got this kind of almost cliff texture around the museum area here. But what we are calling another faculty building ultimately. But yeah, nice to see people coming in and out. There is quite a bit of activity actually around the campus. We've got so many students out here on the lawn and yeah, just chilling out, relaxing, eating some food, I think. Well, no one's eating, everyone's just sitting there in awe. Maybe there's a Pokemon or something around this area. In fact, they're all wearing the same clothes, aren't they? That's kind of interesting. I've never noticed that before. Is that like a student uniform? I'm actually curious if these are all students. Oh, we need to give the university a name. It just said Modern University. Highly educated, occupation unemployed. So they're not all students, but they're all wearing some form of uniform. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. So we will give this a name, and we'll call it the Tinny Technology Institute, or TTI, if that can be an abbreviation. But yeah, I think it's worked quite well, and obviously as time goes on we'll extend out these faculty buildings at the back with the actual extensions to the university and increase the capacity that way, but for now I think it's sitting in okay. We've got an absolute abundance of cars parking here because of course in the University Village I've used mostly the alleyway road, so there isn't a lot of parking. So I did come through and add in extra little car parks like here. We've got this big one here, demolished a few houses to get that in. We also have a few odd spaces like this little section there. There's a couple of other places, I now can't see any of them, where we've added a couple of odd car parking spaces here on the corner as well. But I've squeezed them into a couple of what I'd hope to think are relatively appropriate locations, another little one out here as well, so that we have got some more parking. And obviously there is some parking on the streets, added these car parks in at the end here as well, which I thought was quite nice, like match up to the university edge too. But yeah, very busy from a car parking perspective. You can see this road down here as well. So I did already extend the bus line down here, just to note as well. So we have got the orange line, which now comes in. It does stop at this stop here, so they can get onto the other line to get them out to the industrial area and the ore mine or other parts of Tinny as they so wish. And then it comes in here, comes up to the university, and then essentially does a loop around the university village here and goes back on itself. And if we take a little look at usage on our lines, because they have been settling in for a little while now, I'd say. So there's 126 on the main Tinny line, and then on the university line, the orange one, there's 212. So it's not doing too bad. There are some stops which are pretty busy. In fact, this bus is actually full. We've got 4 buses on this line. But yes, this stop by the station is getting pretty busy, and it does mean a lot of our sort of walking busyness over this bridge has now calmed down a little bit because everyone is waiting on the buses. Goodness knows what they are doing there. But there's still a hive of activity around Tinny, which I really like, but now sort of more centralised towards those bus stops and towards those train station locations. I do enjoy this. There seems to be a constant flow of people actually coming from these bus stops at the bottom of the hill here, using this little walking path up towards the university, which is really nice. So yeah, that's it. Nice and plain and simple really here. Just a bit of surface usage around the buildings with lots of benches, big fountain at the back to frame the library building there, and yeah, some shade with the trees. I did also add in this gravel track as mentioned, which runs across the hillside and then connects up to the road there. Doesn't seem to be very many people using it. Probably quite a long way to walk around at this point, but yeah, it's there for nature purposes anyway, for some enjoyment there. Of course, the Student Union building, as we're calling it that, doesn't seem very busy right now, but there are a few people around. I have seen some people using it. We've got a picture of a stadium on the screen. This is such a cool asset. Really, really like this. Particularly with all those food trucks around the edge, the container kind of style to it. I feel like it's pretty trendy and and studenty at least, so I think it fits into there quite well. And then around the dorms, we've just tidied up some of the surface work around here and added a few trees and benches and that sort of thing. Particularly around here, we've got a little food court down this side so that the students can enjoy a burger or some dirty chips after their night at the student union bar. Some benches around those areas. That's all sort of tied up together with some hedging around the edge. And then we come on down here, we've got a larger car park to support these. So I did put in the French low rent buildings in here as well, just to support some of that higher density, add some more affordable accommodation to the area. I thought that they could act as dorms as well at the back there. And then we've obviously got all of our row housing, and I love this little kind of colourful block in the middle here. I think that's pretty cute. But the Northeast US pack is working tremendously well, I think, for these, like, oh, just gorgeous assets. And the fact that some of the brick looks a bit worn and things on the side really adds to the atmosphere. So yeah, very pleased with that. We do have a couple of commercial units here along the road, another one on this side here too. So some of that demand is satisfied. And of course, back at the entrance, I did put a gas station in as well, so that we do have that as a facility. I did, round the outside, I did go for a little bit of low density here just to build it away towards the high street. But I think it sits in quite well. And I did add another connection onto the highway here just because traffic build-up on this junction at the bottom was pretty intense, shall we say. So it seems to be flowing quite well now and working pretty efficiently, I think, now that everyone's moved in at least. There was a time there where traffic was mayhem, shall we say. So if we take a little look at the university, we have got 1,080 people in here now. And we still have another 900 eligible that aren't obviously going yet, but it is still building up relatively slowly, so we'll keep an eye on that. Our high school capacity is actually dipping a little bit. We've actually got more elementary free spaces than we do high school, which is strange to say the least, but there we go. And also a quick note, our unemployment has shot up again. Obviously, we've added quite a big chunk to our population here, at least 5,000 or 6,000 I think we have added in this episode. So we're back up to 20% unemployment, which isn't great. We're going to need to address that and add some more jobs for the workforces. So I'm thinking now that we've got more highly educated, and hopefully we can see that when we take a look at this info view here, hopefully we're going to see that highly educated bracket and that well-educated bracket start to increase a little bit. And we have extra demand for offices. So I think that is definitely what is going to be coming next in the city's life cycle. Of course, that highway upgrade, we still definitely want to do that. If we trace this highway all the way back into Few Haven, this little junction here does get quite built up at times. Like it's not too bad. And to be honest, I think it's kind of realistic levels of traffic. We've got a traffic light in here, so they do stop and they build up a bit, but it's not super, super extreme. There's times where it's sort of backing up maybe what would be the equivalent of 100 meters or so down the road, but it's not particularly far, so I'm kind of content with it. I think a little bit of traffic actually makes the city feel a bit more alive and a bit more realistic, so it's not too bad right now, but we definitely do need to consider that highway project, particularly because it's going to be coming in through this valley here. So how are we going to fit a big junction and fit the highway over the rail line and the other sort of local highway that we already have in existence is going to be an interesting challenge. So yeah, watch this space. But for today, that is going to be it. If you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares are really greatly appreciated. Don't forget to check out Instant Gaming to get big discounts on your favourite games. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you again next time. Bye bye.